Hello everyone and welcome. This is video coverage from the Blitz at Butte. It is a tournament over in Central Oregon. I'm Scott Withers here with Taylor Coulomb. We want to give a big thank you to our sponsors that you can see listed on the screen here. Taylor, tell us a little bit about the property that we are on for this event.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Butte Ranch, this is a pretty high quality country club. This is a golf course property in Central Oregon. Incredible views everywhere you look, and as far as disc golf is concerned, the best quality fairways we could ever play on.
Yeah, you can see the four players we've got on the card today. We have Riddley, who's a younger kid, Dallas, a younger kid but really good, Josh coming all the way from Hawaii, about to move over to Oregon, and then myself. So we are starting it off with one of the most straightforward holes on the course, and also one of the longer par threes of hole one. But one of the things we are going to see out here is the elements play a big factor, and this round one was beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. It was nice conditions, it was nice and warm out, and not a bad place to start.
Yeah, you'll look around, see the views. I had never played this tournament before. It was the first time, but we are starting off with Riddley Barker, I would say 18 or 19-year-old kid out of Prineville, and he smashes the disc.
Yeah, I mean, hole one's a pretty stock 400 feet, and that's maybe a little short, but in the circle, it's a good start.
Next on the tee from Jefferson, we got Scott Withers.
What was your strategy on this one?
Yeah, when we stepped up, we had a pretty strong right to left wind. It felt like everything was going to pull left no matter how wide you threw it. So I just wanted to take something overstable and kind of throw it out toward the bunker on the right and just let the wind carry it left.
Yeah, I'm going T-Bird here. I'm full open bag, working for the PDJ at this point, so we have no sponsors, no obligations, which means you'll kind of see me throw a little bit of everything for this round and next round. But 380 feet, nothing in the way. It's like, it's kind of a dream hole to start on, because you got to earn the birdie at that distance, but at the same time, like, there's nothing in the way. We should be throwing this within 30 feet.
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of throwing lawn darts out there, but it's windy enough that you're going to have to earn the putt to get your rhythm going for the day.
It's funny, we talk about a little bit of wind on the first day. Just wait until you watch round two's coverage, because we're going to feel like this was absolutely nothing. Josh Gerald, about my age, we were talking about it, just started playing the game a few years ago, living in Hawaii, is about to move over here to Oregon. It's his first time on video, I think, and then someone that is not new to video and one of the best up-and-coming players, honestly, in the world, but definitely here in the Northwest, Dallas Garber, and he's going to be throwing quite a bit of a mixed bag also, with a heavy dose of kind of some Castoplast and a couple things from Stokely discs.
Yeah, he's going Color Glow FD3 here. This is the disc he would throw as often as he can on any hole. He can kind of has it beat in. He can do anything with it. Oh, yeah. Kind of like you with your T-Bird, just throwing a stock shot.
You'll see very common theme for this course as Josh lines up his upshot, maybe a little nerves on the first tee and turned it into the ground. There's flags everywhere out here. Andy and the tournament staff, I could only imagine the amount of hours they spent putting OB flags out on this course. And one of the challenges when you're trying to create a course that's fun for all divisions, and there was some lower divisions in this event also, is finding that right challenge of tightening the OB up enough where it's challenging for the pros but not too much so it's still fun for everyone else.
Correct. It's creating technicality and challenge, but not making it so demanding that you take the fun away.
Dallas, a little left side from about 38 to start. This camera view makes it look a little closer, but I'm probably at about 25 feet. Kind of a nervy putt when you're getting kind of like first hole jitters, and you might have been a card or two in front of us, and I remember telling you this after the round, but I walked over to the first tee, and then I looked to my wife and I go, you know, I threw 0 warm-up putts. Not one. Didn't throw a single one. Walked over to a tree and threw a couple putts against a tree before we started. But those 25-footers are real nervy when you don't throw a single putt warming up for the day.
Yes, they are nervy, and both you and Riddley having to make them, but once you make them, it's kind of a good weapon, because now you're already in rhythm and you're comfortable off the first hole of the round.
Yeah, and we were we are off at this point, and Josh, little different putting style. Honestly, all four of us kind of have different putting styles in this group, and I was kind of teasing the younger two with Dallas and Riddley because they both fire putts in, and I was like, you guys don't know what it's like to play on bad baskets. But the younger generation in our game right now has grown up with good baskets everywhere, and you're allowed to.
Yeah, they have. It's been interesting. You know this well. I've gone through both phases, and I play with Dallas quite a bit, and he does. I mean, if there's one thing he does, he commits.
Hole 2, our first par 4, 700 feet from the back pro pads. You can see the pink flags in the middle of the fairway. That's just a random strip of OB that they put to make this hole more challenging. And I thought that it was absolutely pointless until I saw a couple guys lay up. And then when round 2 comes around and we're playing this hole into a ripping headwind, then the OB made a lot more sense. But I thought that it was too short and not big enough. And it's like, I wasn't thrilled with this out of my hand. And it's still way over that OB circle and almost found some kind of, that's not even long OB, it's more right side. But an interesting design with this hole to add a little more challenge is to put like a 40-foot, 50-foot wide just OB strip right in the middle.
Yeah, it kind of creates a feature to the hole that maybe isn't really there. It's kind of just an open, long golf fairway here. I can actually say both groups that I played in, we only had one person in those 8 people attempt to go for it.
Really?
Yeah, I walked with a couple groups before I played because I actually didn't see any of the course beforehand, and I kind of realized that if the layup's in the right spot, you kind of just get to repeat hole one's stock tee shot on your approach to the basket. I'm definitely someone who prefers, if I can, I want to try to throw the same shot as many times in a row, and it kind of gave me that opportunity.
Okay. Well, you can see Dallas going full flight here, and this is what I was trying to do. He got a lot more out of it. I just liked the aggressive play because you're going to see when we get up there, he's like 200 feet from the basket or something. I don't know if I quite buy that this hole was 700 feet total, especially if you're going for it, because I would say he threw it like 460 to 480 and is probably inside 200. This wasn't bad though if you lay up short, and I think that's why I was like, I would have liked to see maybe the OB be a little bigger.
Sure.
To make it where if you were going to lay up, you really had to execute a second shot. Ridley lays up here, and honestly, he was like right on the flag line, but safe. And you can see, I mean, it's just kind of a stock 320-foot hyzer from where he's at.
Yeah, I kind of put himself pinched up against the line, but it gave him a great upshot there.
Yeah. Like I said, I kind of turned this over, but if I'm throwing forehand with this teal disc, which is a gator, like, it's probably inside 250. So I just thought if you got over it, made it almost an automatic birdie.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'd quite buy the full 700 because I was throwing a pretty short pitch off the tee, and it still only left me with just a 380, 400-foot, pretty comfortable shot. It didn't feel like you needed much distance on either shot to get up and down.
Yeah, and you can see Dallas's upshot there. He was probably 140 feet or something. This was one, though, and early in this course, you wanted to rack up birdies. The meat of this course really came in the middle section of it. I feel like it started with a bunch of holes that you really needed to get birdies on, and then the ending section was a bunch of holes that we wanted to get birdie on, but part of that was due to the wind direction. The middle section is where it was like, get your birdies and then kind of hold on in the middle section and then get to the end and kind of be in attack mode a little more. But good putt by Riddley. Just, birdie from a little out of position, I would say, laying up. I guess he's in the middle of the fairway, but
yeah, and a good start to get 2 for 2 on the board as well. Yeah, like you said, you want to start hot, especially, this is one of those courses where the wind direction is very consistent. So you have stretches of holes that are a favorable direction and stretches where you can't even really advance the disc.
Yeah, I would say in this first round, it didn't hit us until maybe hole 11 or 12, and then it started blowing pretty hard. But as you can see right now, it's not really playing a factor. This hole 3, 240, it's beautiful, right, over a pond. You're not really worried about throwing it out of bounds here, I would say. It's a full shank to go out of bounds.
Yeah, I mean, it has that island hole feel. You have a forced carry, but it is a pretty comfortable stock distance for most players where, I mean, you would be pretty frustrated to be even 20 feet short, let alone out of bounds short.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this one on my rangefinder was at 265, and it just made it where you could throw just your stock forehand fairway driver, and it was the right distance. You didn't have to throw it hard, and without the wind ripping, like, yeah, I mean, you could have thrown it in the water if you rolled your wrist, but the truth is, if you're trying to compete to win at the open level, you're probably not going to dump this one in the water.
Correct. And as you said, the wind being down, you could really throw whatever shot was your best 260, 270 shot in your bag. As you see, Riddley threw kind of a wide backhand and worked just as well.
Dallas, same FD3, I would imagine that he's throwing backhand.
No, so this one is a regular glow FD3, quite a bit more overstable.
Okay.
He has a
When
couple
he
of
throws
them.
it on, touch a hyzer and it holds the whole way.
Yep. This is kind of a nervy putt early in your round. You've already made a couple mistakes. You kind of want to get on the board on a hole like this.
Yeah, Josh birdied hole 2, and then
That is just a
sweet
great
putt
putt
on
to
hole
make.
3. Yeah, it was outside the circle for sure. One of the things that you'll see a lot out at this property, and we didn't want to take for granted, was if you look in the background, you can see a whole number of mountains that kind of separate the western part of Oregon from the central part of Oregon, called the Cascade Range, and they were just beautiful and shining, and it's one of the prettiest properties that I've ever played on.
All right. Another bird.
Another good putt
Riddley.
to make there.
Yeah, we're gonna, Dallas and I, tap ins or almost tap ins away from our second straight star frame as a card.
Yep, and I mean, like you said, you want to get these early holes, and at this distance, this is a hole that you expect pros at this top level to be able to execute.
One of the things that Dallas does consistently is he does take his time on short putts, and that's something that our internal clock is very different on 12-foot putts. I just step up there and toss it in because the more I think about it, the worse I get from that distance. But we'll move into the first challenging hole that we're playing, and I thought this hole was a great design. 330, bunkers all the way up. Essentially, if you're going for it up to maybe 15 or 20 feet short of the basket that you're going to see here in a second, you can bomb it way long if you want, but if you choose to go for it and throw it low, that's in a bunker, and we are playing OB rules for bunkers at this course, not hazard rules, so that's going to be like 70 feet probably for par still.
Correct. They put the bunkers in a spot where on a normal hole, they're kind of where you would almost want to land. So you have to either pin this thing, put it long, or you are out of bounds in a bad spot.
Mm-hmm.
And you go for the drop it on a pin, that's about perfectly pin high, maybe 20, 25 feet.
Yeah, that was a pretty good reaction when that hit the ground. It was on a downslope there, and that very easily could have scooted out to 35 or 40, but got a little lucky just to kind of hit and flop. Josh trying the same thing, not with the same result, but he does stay in bounds. And
Yeah,
that's where I
and you
was
can miss
talking.
out there. It's safe out
that's where I
there.
was talking. Maybe that could have been a little tighter OB line on that left side for this hole or something, but I don't know how you really would have marked it. But it feels like that was a complete accident to go way over there, but it's better than throwing it where Riddley threw it.
This shot, to me, I mean, I've seen people try this, and to me, it's impressive to even get it across.
The problem he runs into, though, you have to throw it so hard backhand to get it over the bunkers that it's hard to get it to stop, and he just ends up at like 60 or 70 feet long, and then if you really want to try to make that, you're putting right back at the bunkers.
Yeah, it definitely puts you in a spot where you have to make a decision. And it is, to me, the harder
we'll call
shot.
It 50.
Yeah, at least.
Where Riddley ended up, there's no chance. Like, it's a full layup essentially from there. I mean, it's 75 or 80 feet, we'll say, and Dallas over the top with his. And then Josh has this for par, which is kind of having to work a little harder than you want on this one.
Yeah, and it's tough to try to make every 30-footer that you got, and he just had to make a big putt on the previous hole as well.
I'm going to go through 7 outfit changes this round because I started with pants and long sleeves and a jacket, and then realized once you got out on the course, it was kind of warm out there. I think we probably had low to mid 60s as the high on this day, but the wind was kind of down, and we are at about 3,000 feet elevation at this course, so the sun hits just a little bit harder.
Yep, and it's dry too, which we don't get too often in the Northwest.
It is dry.
Dallas with par putt there.
As that one gets some pole action we were just talking about.
Yeah, I get really weird about like hands being sweaty or not having dirt to dry your hands off with or whatever. It was just one of those days I felt like I was never consistent on grip, and I was always walking around looking for dry dirt, which some places out here there's tons of, and other places you're like in the middle of a golf fairway. But I believe that this golf course has not been opened for the year yet at this point.
Yeah, so we've got hole 5. You've got to be feeling kind of good. You're off to a good start. The putt's feeling good. I mean, are you feeling like you could go pretty low right now?
Yeah, I thought that before the round. When I played a practice round out here the night before, I thought if there was no conditions, you were going to see some scores that were pretty low. I thought this hole was incredible, 740, but I did think there needed to be a Mando that took you the way that that disc just went. I played it by myself in the practice round, and I didn't realize how easy the hyzer is that these guys are all going to throw. I do wish you had been forced to go over the cart path and like kind of shape a shot, but you can see the yellow sign way down there, and that is a Mando that forces your second shot over a pond, and then the basket is in the very left side of your screen right now. But this one was probably true 740.
Yeah, I mean, this required 2 good shots, whether you went down the middle, which is definitely the harder shot, but you could get a lot closer to the Mando, or you went hyzer as Dallas has gone. Both shots have to be good, because especially when you guys see the approach here, if this approach is not good, you could take a pretty big number here.
Yeah, I don't know if being closer to that Mando helped, though. It was almost like the farther you threw it, if you weren't way right, it almost made it impossible to get a disc to swing around the Mando tree and get back all the way to the pin. So when Riddley and I are pretty much right next to each other, even though we took very different lines to get there, and we would both prefer to be like 30 or 40 feet right of that to make the upshot significantly easier.
Yeah, this is definitely the kind of par 4 where if you got to practice, you definitely would have liked to figure out a spot to land, and it might not be as far, but it opens up the approach. As you guys see here, he's going to want to swing this hyzer out wide and high, but it has to be very precise.
Yeah, this is still a full shot. I would say he's probably 370 from here still. And it doesn't get back in, so that's the danger of this shot. And the groups in front of us had kind of given us a warning when we walked by that when things were going over the water, they were just kind of getting dropped. So there was a little bit of crosswind that we couldn't feel or didn't feel much of, but every time something went up, it had a hard time fighting back left.
Correct, and you see Dallas make an adjustment here, a lot higher line and a lot more hyzer, and that's about as good as you want to throw that shot.
But this is kind of what I was talking about. I guess Riddley's in a pretty good spot. Where you see mine up left a little, it pinches off the angle so much. You want to throw a spike hyzer, but a spike hyzer doesn't actually move left. It just kind of goes down. This one gets away from Riddley.
Yeah,
Maybe he laid up.
I would say he was in the ideal spot. I mean, I think that's what you want, but it either looked like a bad pull or he just didn't want to attack this basket.
Yeah, this isn't great as the camera view kind of shows. Like, it's got to be so high and so spiking. And it didn't come off high or spiking. Not a great skip, but fortunate to be in bounds.
Yeah, and you've got another makeable putt to keep it rolling, so at least it's in scoring position.
Good touch. Maybe Riddley was just playing that for par. It might have just been a hole that in his tournament preparations he looked at and said, I don't really want to mess with this one. Let's take our par and move on. There's plenty of other opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, that's a totally reasonable calculus. This is a tough hole, as we see here. Josh is going to get burned by it, and maybe Riddley just felt like there's enough other holes out there, which there are, that you can score on.
Yeah. I never played with Josh or Riddley. Dallas and I have played a ton together. I am very used to playing with people that go for everything, and Josh and Riddley both had game plans that they followed on a couple holes where they laid up or threw shots that were, you know, maybe not quite as aggressive as I'm used to seeing. But at the end of the day on this course, as long as you pick up the holes that you're supposed to and the easier ones, which this was not one of, you could find yourself in the top couple cards by just playing conservative.
Definitely. I mean, I know where you and Dallas landed. You guys want to pick up this birdie, but this is not a par that hurts you at all.
No, I needed to make that putt. It hit left side, but it wasn't clean and it wasn't good. Dallas slams in his 30-footer. And when he gets that putter rolling, yeah.
Yes, I agree. I mean, when his putter finds the line, he can get hot like maybe no one else in the Northwest when he's really on.
Yeah, I kind of compare it to our buddy Ryan Robinson when Ryan's putting really well, and they both know like 5 feet out of their hand from 50 feet if it's in the hard or not. I'm sitting there waiting the whole flight to see if it's going to weak side in or something.
Yeah, I've practiced enough with Dallas that he has told me before that he feels like the putter for him comes off the hand and hits the basket when it's going well about the same from 5 feet as maybe from like 105 feet.
Definitely straight into one of those you got to get it holes. This one's pretty short, and really the only danger is this hillside on the right, but the grass is so thick on the hill that you can't, I don't know, I didn't see real rollouts as a possibility.
No, I feel like, and that's not a great shot for this hole.
Not great.
I feel like for this hole, I mean, it really gives you kind of a backboard to me, where you, like you said, you've got the thick grass, you've kind of got an upslope. You really just want to stick your drive into the face of the hill and set yourself up with an easy putt.
When I walked by you on this tee pad, you were laying on your back with all 4 limbs up in the air.
Yeah, one of the tough things of not practicing that I, as you know, rarely deal with is that I don't always check my footing before I throw. And I stepped up and went, found a low spot on the tee, slipped, and was not the most fun moment of the round.
Yeah, we just looked over and Taylor is on his back, all 4 up in the air, and his parents there to laugh at him as well. So that was a pretty light moment for our card, who was putting on all 3 when you did that. I didn't even see where your shot went, didn't care. It was just, I was like, Taylor, it's 250 feet. Why are you on your back?
Well, I can tell you it was about 60 to 65 feet long left and in the golf rough.
Did you make the putt?
I did make the putt.
Okay. Yeah,
And,
these are a little farther away than you want to be here on a hole that's got this difficulty.
They are, but you also that much more need to make it, because this is one that, I mean, this hole might average close to 2 in a good pro field.
Yeah, so I thought this course was really fun. So don't take it the wrong way. I thought this basket needed to be 35 feet back right from where it was, right in the edge of the hill, where if you hit the front of the hill, you had to make like a 40-footer, and then the hill really came into play. The concept of where this basket was supposed to be scary, but the reality was the grass is so thick around it that you weren't really going to roll out. Like, you had to throw a pretty bad shot to go out of bounds, which basically meant you whiffed a forehand if you're right-handed, or you rolled your wrist. I guarantee with Dallas and Josh both taking pars here, this is one that they would really like to have back.
Correct. And like you said, it really didn't feel that scary. I mean, like we already outed me. I was in about as far from the basket as an inbounds drive can be, and putting it the out of bounds, and it didn't really ever cross my mind that it would get all the way down to the path.
So 2 birdies and 2 pars. Leading into a pretty cool hole here. I thought the par 4s and par 5s on this course were super well thought out for the most part, and the appropriate challenge. It didn't really do any good to totally let one rip here. You can't see a set of bunkers that we are basically going to try to come up just short of. But a 1,000-foot par 5, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of wind at this point, so you're just kind of throwing it, but it's got enough challenge to it.
Yeah, I agree. And you had some fairway bunkers that are actually in kind of good spots. I mean, you can see your drive there kind of getting up close to one, and I did see a couple drives during the weekend creep into that fairway bunker. And on a 1,000-foot hole, you just can't afford to have that happen.
No, especially on one that is like, if you just move every shot forward, you're going to have a really good chance to make birdie. Just don't hit a tree early in the flight, and don't throw it in out of bounds or into a bunker or whatever. Like, this hole's easy enough to get a birdie on if you just keep moving it forward.
Just don't throw this so we can get to the bunker. And
Yeah, you guys are all in good spots so far.
I was maybe trying to play farther right than everyone else was and leave it short of those bunkers, so my second shot was just another pure hyzer that was kind of over out of bounds for a while and then came back in. But it's the 10th course, right? We only get 1 practice round at it at the most. And like you said, you didn't even get a practice round at it. And you just kind of got to figure it out where you go, and I like to keep the shots as simple as possible in those situations.
Yeah, and I think you're alluding to one of the things that made the par 4s and 5s here so cool is we've already seen a couple where you've got multiple different ways to play that, and you don't always get that on a golf course. Oftentimes you just kind of have a stock shot and you've got to hit it. There were a couple ways you could play this par 5. You could go wide like you said you were trying, and you could also play down the middle. As you see, you're going to see Riddley go all the way around, but you could also play up the middle and make it a lot shorter if you wanted to try to play the gap.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Dallas and I can both probably get 3s on this hole if we want it to really send them. But early in the tournament, and it felt like a hole to me that it would take 2 perfect shots and a good putt to make it 3 on. Or, as long as you didn't throw a bad shot, you were going to take a 4. And it's like, just take your birdie and move on, kind of.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing, too, is you're setting up your hyzer here, and that one looks good as well. The other thing here is you guys are going to see this basket placement. Even if you get one way down there on your second and have a look at eagle, it might not even really be a putt that you want to stab at.
Yeah, it's a sneaky tall mound that's pretty steep on all sides. I will say that. Like, it was wrecking some havoc day 2 when the wind was blowing 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, I don't know about the groups you were in, but I felt like both times I played this was one of the more exposed spots of the course where I actually did feel, even in the first round, I was somewhat considering my shot selection based on the wind more than other spots in the course.
You can see the flags starting to pick up just a little bit behind the basket, and that's back by where hole 1's tee pad was. That's why the flags are out there. But this is kind of the point in the round where we teed off, I feel like maybe 11 in the morning, 11:15 in the morning or something.
Yeah, I think we were both around that 11 o'clock-ish time of day.
So as we get closer to the afternoon, it picked up. And when some of the later groups in the day, not the MPO field, was playing, we were watching some drives, and it was rough, and it was just kind of a highlight of what was coming for day 2.
Definitely. You guys all here have some pretty reasonable stock of upshots. As you know, you can see you and Dallas both have probably your best approach disc in your hand, so this is one you want to get up and down.
Yeah, not a great effort, but it climbed up there close enough. You can see, it was just like, what in the world? Why is that not just 6 feet? It's supposed to hit the front of the hill, but it didn't. It crawled up there good enough anyway. This is kind of a death putt here. It can easily get out to 35. And it landed soft, so it didn't, but
That was close.
Yeah, and you guys all know as viewers, elevation does not always translate on camera, but even here you can actually see this basket is pretty up above where Dallas's swing is going to be. This is not easy, even if it's short.
Oh, Dallas, birdie of life.
I know that you have played some in Utah at much higher elevations than this. We play Battle at Bachelor, which is at about 6,000 feet, I believe 6,000 feet every year in elevation. Were you noticing any difference with throws and putts here at 3,000 feet in the springtime as maybe you do in the summer when you're playing at some real higher elevations?
Yeah, a little bit. I definitely think that you see it with like the glide and the flight of putts. Like, you know, you and I are both people that have a pretty distinct hyzer putt, and we've both talked about that when we're at elevation, we feel more confident because we just throw it at the pole and it doesn't really move.
All right.
And you kind of notice that, like, the discs are a bit more stable and they're a little bit less glidey. Like, I think when I go to Utah, it's probably maybe I go 2 or 3 clicks on the less stable side. This course, I definitely adjusted, but it was only maybe 1 click.
Yeah, I don't know how much I adjusted throwing out here and a little bit putting. I feel like we go from sea level a lot to 5,000 or 6,000 feet, and you notice a big difference. This course was, yeah, maybe your distance drivers were a little more stable, or I tried to throw a couple rollers that didn't end up great. But this is the first hole of the course I would consider hard. This is hole 8, 800 feet, par 4. There's OB right and left. There's absolutely OB this far right, and that was one of the worst shots you could throw. Thankfully, I didn't go in the pond, I guess. I got it back. But that is out of bounds early and still like 500 feet away from the basket.
Yeah, you guys are going to see this hole says 800 feet, and I got to say, this might be, Scott, one of the longest 800 feet of open fairway I've ever played.
It's every bit of that. Yeah, I just think the way that the tee shot lined up, I tried to throw the aggressive play to get some extra distance, because if you throw this hyzer here, you're still left with like 380 to 400 feet in, and the green was a little more guarded than the fairway, but it was tough. Like, if you didn't really move one out there and get inside 350, I don't think you realistically had a great chance to get a birdie.
Yeah, and you say aggressive, and definitely that flex play is the more aggressive, but I don't really even know that the hyzer is that much safer, because when we stepped up, this was a strong headwind and a bit left to right. It didn't feel like the hyzer was that easy to for sure drop in bounds either. This was just a tough tee shot. You really had to make a decision and commit to what you were going to do.
Yeah, Dallas smashed that one. That's going to leave him a very manageable distance in to a semi-guarded green. And then Josh hitting the fairway, which is all you can really ask for here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, where Dallas put it and where you can throw it are maybe a couple of the players who could maybe attack this pin in 2, but for most players, even that might be on a high card, Josh is kind of where you want to be.
Yeah, keeping it in the middle, moving it forward, you're basically just playing for par if you're doing that on this hole, and he's still going to have a semi-full shot in. I was like 440, 450 in still, and there's just like, the shot was okay. It was just so far away still that it bails out and ends up with not really a putt, but I earned that bogey on the tee shot more than anything on this hole.
Yeah, and I would actually say the spot that you were at, and to a lesser degree Riddley, is maybe one of the spots where throwing, you might notice the elevation, because it's a little bit harder. I think a lot of players want to throw a hyzer flip straight at it from here. You kind of had to force that flex shot, and you can see Riddley here aiming it wide as well.
Trying to keep it low, out of the wind, and just comes up a little shy.
Yeah, I mean, he still had a lot to carry. If you were if you were still a ways out, he wasn't a ton closer. That would be a pretty bonus one to get from there. I mean, Dallas here, position A, probably?
Great spot. Yeah,
He's got
this is
another
in a great
FD3 in
spot.
his hand, so this is feeling pretty comfortable for him if he's got one of his FD3s. This is something he wants to get up and down. That's great.
That'll work. That was no one played that hole better this weekend than that. One, it's impossible because he's a foot away, but the combination of how far the drive was, how much of just a controlled hyzer shot he had in, and he doesn't have to putt. One thing you're about to notice is we just went from a bunch of Innova Pro 28s that are real good baskets to some of these old Mach 5s.
Correct. And especially in the case of putters like Riddley and Dallas, that even especially helps them to be close because their putt is going to come in not the ideal speed you love for baskets like this.
No, I will say my putt is less affected by switching from the new Innova Pro 28s to these DGA baskets that are probably a good handful of years old and just don't have as many chains in them. It's that old school kind of up and down style of putting where your disc needs to be moving down when it gets to the chains. I don't mind it, I guess.
Great putt from
I
Josh
kind of grew
there.
up playing on baskets that were a little on the rougher side, so part of the game is being able to adapt. And these aren't that bad. These buckets are okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're older style, but they're not in bad shape for what they are. And like you said, adapting, the trade-off is that you maybe don't have as much confidence putting in the wind as someone like Dallas or Riddley, so there's trade-offs on both sides.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And really don't have as much confidence putting in the wind on these things. On just any brand new baskets. But hole 8, great hard par 4, and we follow it up with another one. We're in a 3-hole stretch here, and you'll see hole 10 when we get to the back 9. But we're in a 3-hole stretch of really good, really hard par 4s. Camera view's not showing you the fairway that Dallas is going down currently. There is a Mando left of a tree. You have to go down a left fairway here and then turn and throw a shot that's between, I would say, 250 and 400, depending on where your drive goes, over a pond with an OB line long. Like, this is a tough second shot no matter where your drive goes.
Incredibly tough. And the drive itself is not hard to get in bounds, but it is hard to get it to a spot where you have an upshot that you really like the look of.
Yeah. I can second that. I have no point on this hole was in a spot where I like the look of my second.
Yeah,
it's just so hard to get a backhand turnover into the right spot because they all fade out this way.
Yeah, and I can say that's kind of where I was playing from. And the tough thing is that as you get further left, the angle to the green is better, but you are a lot further from the basket, and that is a tough carry when you've got water, wind, an altitude some of us aren't used to and maybe haven't even practiced at. And you kind of alluded to it, but this is also a pretty tight green.
Yeah, the green's real tight, and it was getting tighter because it kept flooding more and more, which is a really weird concept on this course, but the pond kept getting more full, and he kept having to move, like in between rounds, he had to move the flag line again.
Yeah, I don't know about you, I've maybe only a couple times ever in my career experienced, and you're going for a roller here.
Well,
Ball over.
I believe I saw somebody else over there on this hill, maybe not in round 1. Who would that be?
That would be me in round 2.
Yeah. In hindsight, I'm trying to work it out internally right now. That's so bad. Like, just flip it over and throw it up by that pond. It is an aggressive shot. The roller's a very aggressive play on this hole, but it's supposed to be aggressive to the Mando. It's not supposed to be aggressive to getting farther and farther and farther away from the basket as it finishes.
Yep, and you're probably a good 400 feet here, and you've got to carry at that as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're going for this, it looks like.
Yeah, I was playing well, and then hole 8 happened, and I bogeyed, and then I was like, I got to get back on track. 380, probably a 370-foot carry over water. The wind was kind of blowing the correct direction, and I was like, just send it and see where it ends up, and that was a safe spot.
Safe route.
But it's still got to earn like a 35-footer.
Yep, and as we kind of mentioned earlier, not a ton of wind maybe early in the round, but at least for our group, this is about the hole that it started feeling like you were having to play to the wind a little bit. And this is maybe kind of where putting gets tougher on you guys. You know, you guys have had more or less straight at it looks all day, and you guys are maybe going to have to start adjusting.
This was the hard part of the course, from 7 or 8 through, I don't know, maybe 12 was kind of like this section where if you were 2 under on that section or 3 under, it wasn't the end of the world. Even where Dallas's pretty decent drive ended up, he's still 320 feet, 300 feet to the basket here. Ooh. And there's enough land, but in between rounds, the basket for round 2 did get moved closer to the water because of the flooding.
Correct. Dallas kind of gave it a bid there. That is a great shot. Josh here, I mean, I'd say this is where you want to approach from, but it didn't feel any easier when you got that close. That's great.
Great shot there, though.
Yeah, that's excellent. And you're starting to see the flags whip a little more. So putting it close, as he and Dallas did, is definitely going to take some mental stress off of what felt like a pretty long round.
It's about 35, 38. I hadn't had one of these yet for the day.
And great putt.
It barely gets over. The wind had just stopped for a second. It wasn't crazy windy, but it had stopped for a second. And when it does that, I won't take any time at all. I'm just going to get up there and try to throw it because too much hyzer and too many wobbles on my putt to know what the wind's going to do to it.
Great putt there by Riddley as well.
Slams him in.
That was the wrong side, though. It was right, not left.
What a good front nine for Riddley. I would imagine first time on camera, first time on a featured card, I would guess. And came out and, I mean, just shot 5 under par in the front.
Yeah, which is a great score. I mean, the pace we were seeing, that's going to end up being a really, really good starting pace to begin with.
That's the weather spot.
Yeah, Dallas cleans his up to also get in at 5 under through 9. We're going to get a little bit of a check-in here, but that is the wrap up to the front. I was at 6 with a bogey. Dallas and Riddley both at 5, and then Josh at even. This course needs some distance, that's for sure. So we will see. We get a little more technical on the back nine, but thanks for joining us, and we will catch you guys on the next video.